What Dahlia Ching didn't know was that every single screenshot she'd posted had a 3-pixel flaw. Iris Jiang stared at the forensic report on her screen. Felix Fong had circled the jagged pixel artifacts along the edges of the chat bubbles in red ink, a perfect match for the rendering signature of WeChat Simulator. And the status bar was 3 pixels wider than it should have been. 3 pixels. 2 million people had spent an entire week cursing her out because of those 3 pixels. Legal counsel retained. Iris posted those 4 words on her account, then turned off every notification. In a private group chat, Dahlia had smugly typed, "She won't last." Same thing happened to that other blogger, 2 months of harassment and she deleted her whole account. She didn't know Iris had a web archive snapshot of that very screenshot. She didn't know Iris had already found the first victim Dahlia had driven off the internet 2 years earlier with the exact same tactic. And what Dahlia really didn't know was that those 3 pixels were just the first page of a 40-page forensic report. This time, no one was deleting anything. At 6 in the morning, Iris's phone buzzed against her nightstand. 3 vibrations, then silence. 3 more, then silence again. She opened her eyes, stared at the ceiling for 5 full seconds, and reached for the device. The screen was a wall of notifications from at least 8 different platforms, all saying roughly the same thing. "Iris, have you no shame? Still live streaming when you owe money? Delete your account, you fraud." She'd been reading messages like this for an entire week. It had taken her exactly 168 hours to go from fury to fear to sleeplessness to a kind of hollow numbness. She threw off the covers, swung her bare feet onto the freezing floor, and shuffled to the bathroom. The woman in the mirror was 26, not conventionally striking but pleasant-looking in an approachable, girl-next-door way. For 3 years, she'd run a history education channel on short video platforms, building nearly 2 million followers. Her handle was Inkstone History, and her niche was making historical narratives accessible, digestible storytelling, occasional artifact deep dives, museum walkthroughs. No clickbait. No chasing trends. No garbage sponsorships. She'd grown it step by step, brick by brick, on solid content and a calm, measured delivery. Then, a week ago, a girl named Dahlia Ching posted a long-form Weibo essay, and everything crumbled. Iris finished brushing her teeth, splashed cold water on her face, and returned to her bedroom to boot up her computer. The dashboard showed her follower count had dropped below 1.5 million. The comments section on her latest video was a war zone. She glanced at it, closed the tab, and opened a document instead, a timeline she'd spent 3 days assembling, from the moment Dahlia posted that essay to the discovery she'd made last night. Every entry was dated, timestamped, and linked to screenshots. She reviewed it from top to bottom, confirmed nothing was missing, then opened WeChat and sent a message to one contact. "Beckett, I'm ready." The reply came almost instantly, "Let's meet." Iris changed into a black hoodie, pulled on a baseball cap and mask, slung her backpack over her shoulder, and headed out. November in Seaview City was bitterly cold. Her old building had no elevator, and 2 of the motion sensor lights in the stairwell were broken. She had to feel her way down to the 3rd floor before anything clicked on. A drizzle was falling outside. She opened her umbrella and stepped into the gray streets. She and Beckett Zhou had agreed on an out-of-the-way tea house whose owner was a friend of his. He'd reserved a private room for them. When Iris arrived, Beckett was already there, more than halfway through a pot of tea, a laptop open on his knee and a stack of printed documents on his right. He wore a charcoal overcoat and gold-rimmed glasses that gave him a scholarly air, but Iris knew from experience that in a courtroom, he was anything but mild-mannered. Beckett was her senior from university, a graduate of Seaview City University's law school, now practicing at a boutique firm specializing in defamation and online reputation cases. They'd met on the debate team back then and had kept in touch loosely over the years. When everything blew up, he was the first person she called. "Sit." Beckett didn't look up, just slid a stack of papers toward her. "Start with this." Iris sat, removed her mask and cap, and began flipping through the documents. The first page was a draft cease and desist letter addressed to Dahlia Cheng, precise, restrained, legally bulletproof. The following pages contained a line-by-line analysis of Dahlia's long essay, with each allegedly false statement cross-referenced to evidence types and collection methods. "I've reviewed your timeline," Beckett said, setting down his teacup and adjusting his glasses. "It's extremely thorough, almost ready to use as an evidence index. The real question is, how far do you want to take this?" "Make her pay," Iris said, her voice flat. "Legally and proportionally." Beckett studied her for a moment, gauging the emotional weight behind her words. Her face was composed, with faint shadows under her eyes, but her gaze was steady, not the state you'd expect from someone who'd been under online siege for a week. He'd seen plenty of clients in similar positions, some broke down sobbing, some raged uncontrollably, some just deflated. But Iris had something he didn't encounter often, a kind of collected stillness. Still as a blade. "All right." Beckett nodded and pulled a single sheet from the bottom of the stack. "Then let me be upfront. If we go the legal route, it's going to be a long process, and gathering admissible evidence won't be easy. Dahlia's post is cleverly written, most of it is framed as subjective experience. Only 7 claims can be objectively classified as false statements, and 3 of those are degree-based descriptions that a court might not uphold. The remaining 4 are solid enough to get us past the filing stage, but whether we actually win depends entirely on the evidence." Iris took the sheet. Beckett had circled key paragraphs from Dahlia's post in red. She read through it carefully, then looked up with a faint curl of her lips, but there was no humor in it. "There are more than 7, she said." Beckett raised an eyebrow. Iris pulled a portable hard drive from her backpack and connected it to the tea house's wall-mounted screen. A folder appeared, neatly organized into dozens of subfolders, each labeled and annotated. She clicked one open. It contained screenshots of Dahlia's Weibo feed, going back 2 years, sorted by month. "I spent the last week going through every public post she's ever made across all platforms," Iris said as she navigated. "Weibo, Xiaohongshu, Douyin, Zhihu, Douban, everywhere I could find. And I found something. About 6 months ago, Dahlia posted a WeChat moment that someone screenshotted and reposted to Weibo. It said, 'I'd love to experience being pitted by the whole internet, it must feel amazing.' She deleted it later, but I found the screenshot." She enlarged the image. It was unmistakably Dahlia's WeChat moment, matching profile picture and handle, posted in April. Beckett stared at the screenshot in silence for several seconds, then slowly broke into a smile. It was the same look Iris remembered from debate tournaments, the moment he'd caught an opponent in a logical trap. Precise. Sharp. Predatory. "Interesting," he said. "That establishes motive, inclination, and premeditation. The post itself doesn't prove she fabricated this particular accusation, but combined with other evidence, it creates a complete chain of motivation. The court might not weigh it heavily, but in the court of public opinion, it's devastating." "I'm not planning to use it in court," Iris said. "That's your job. What I want is for everyone to see exactly who she is." Beckett looked at her differently now. In college, Iris had been so quiet she was almost invisible. She never took first speaker role, just handled research and framework, as unobtrusive as a houseplant. But the woman sitting across from him now had something in her eyes he'd never seen before. "What exactly are you planning?" he asked. Iris put away the hard drive, settled back into her chair, and took a sip of tea. It had gone cold, bitter on her tongue. Her voice was colder. "I'm going to make her eat her own lie." Or the next 2 hours, Iris laid out her complete strategy. Beckett listened without interrupting, his silence stretching so long Iris began to think he'd object. But finally, He took off his glasses, polished them, put them back on, and regarded her with a complicated expression. "You know what the scariest part of this plan is?" he said. "What?" "Every single step is legal." Iris didn't answer. She looked down at her own hands resting on the table, long-fingered, knobby-knuckled, nails neatly trimmed. These hands had produced over 400 videos in 3 years, written over 1 million words of scripts, pored over more historical texts and academic papers than she could count. She'd built a small world with them, a world of passion, persistence, the only thing in her 26 years she'd ever truly been proud of. And Dahlia Cheng had shattered it with a 1,200-word essay, a few crocodile tears, some blurry screenshots, and a handful of doctored chat logs. Let's start from the beginning. Iris had launched Inkstone History 3 years ago. The history and literature niche on short video platforms was already crowded, but she'd found her angle: no gimmicks, no fabricated tales, every video cited its sources. Reference lists and academic papers scrolled across the end credits. A 10-minute episode often drew on a dozen scholarly articles. In a space full of sensationalism, her style was almost defiantly unfashionable, and precisely because of that, she'd attracted a core audience of discerning, loyal followers. 3 years in, Inkstone History had nearly 2 million subscribers, ranking in the top 10 of its vertical. Between platform ad revenue and occasional brand partnerships, Iris had managed to keep herself afloat in Seaview City, not wealthy, but comfortably independent, doing work she loved. For her, that was already the ideal life. Then Dahlia Cheng appeared. Dahlia was also a history blogger, a year behind Iris, with about 800,000 followers. Their content overlapped, both did popular history, but their styles were polar opposites. Iris was academic and rigorous, Dahlia was emotional and entertainment-focused, using immersive storytelling and empathetic narration with elaborate styling and sentimental music to attract a largely young female audience. On paper, their lanes were adjacent but distinct, no direct collision course. The trouble started late last year, when Iris released a series on women in commerce in ancient China. It blew up, over 50 million views across platforms, netting her 400,000 new followers. Dahlia happened to be working on similar content, and in her live streams, she began dropping hints. It's awfully coincidental when a certain peer's topics line up with mine, even down to the reference list. She never named names, but fans weren't stupid. Soon, the arrows were pointing at Iris. Iris chose not to respond. She believed that engaging would only fan the flames, and that the truth would speak for itself. But she underestimated how silence is interpreted in the internet age. For many, no response meant admission, and admission meant guilt. The storm eventually subsided. Iris thought it was over. Until a week ago. On November 17th, Dahlia published a long essay on Weibo titled, "I've Finally Decided to Tell the Truth." The gist: Dahlia claimed she and Iris had once been friends, having met at an offline industry event a year earlier and stayed in touch over WeChat. Under the guise of friendship, she alleged, Iris had repeatedly borrowed her personal collection of books and unpublished research notes, and Dahlia, trusting her, had lent them. Then Iris had used that material in multiple videos, including a series Dahlia herself had been preparing. "I held back for a year," Dahlia wrote, "because I really didn't want to make a big deal out of this. I thought we were all creators and could be understanding with each other. But when Inkstone History released that new series, I broke down. That was 6 months of my work. I'd even finished the script, just needed to record. And then she just casually turned it into her original content. I don't know if justice exists anymore, but I can't stay silent." Attached were WeChat screenshots showing Inkstone asking Little Flower for materials and topic advice, plus a comparison table of their episode topics, undeniably similar. The internet exploded within hours. Dahlia's fans led the charge, then the mob descended. Within 24 hours, #Inkstone History Plagiarism topped the trending lists across multiple platforms. Iris's comment sections were overrun, her DMs flooded with abuse and threats, and someone had doxed her address and phone number. Her brand partners sent termination letters, the platform suspended her ad revenue. Everything she'd built over 3 years crumbled like a sandcastle kicked flat. The absurd part, those chat logs were fabricated. Iris and Dahlia had indeed met at an industry event the previous year, and they'd exchanged WeChat. But their entire chat history totaled fewer than 20 messages, polite pleasantries and superficial work talk. Iris had never asked Dahlia for any materials, never seen any unpublished research notes. As for topic overlap, they covered the same historical period. Overlap was inevitable, and the knowledge was public domain, no one had exclusive rights to any of it. But against a tearful, perfectly crafted essay, all that nuance evaporated. For the first 3 days, Iris barely slept. She tried posting a clarification, but it drowned in the tsunami of abuse, shares and comments filled with liar, shameless, get off the internet. She tried reaching out to Dahlia directly, Dahlia blocked her. She even contacted the event organizers to request sign-in records and photos, hoping to prove they barely knew each other, but the organizers cited privacy concerns and declined. On the 3rd night, Iris sat in her rented apartment, gazing at Seaview City's glittering skyline, and seriously considered giving up. She could delete her account, move to another city, find an ordinary job, start over. She was 26, young enough to rebuild. The thought lasted maybe 3 seconds. Then she asked herself, why the hell should she? Why should she pay for someone else's lies? Why should every late night, every book she'd read, every page she'd written over 3 years be erased by one accusation? Why should the aggressor hide behind a screen, basking in the warmth of being pitted, while the victim quietly disappeared? She couldn't accept it. From that moment, something inside Iris shifted. She stopped trying to clear her name, because in an overheated information ecosystem, a defense is the weakest posture. People didn't want truth, they wanted a story that matched their emotions. Dahlia had given them one, victim exposes industry corruption. It had tears, betrayal, righteous fury, it was complete, it was moving, and no one wanted to question it. So Iris would give them a more complete, more compelling story. She spent 3 days, with the same meticulous rigor she applied to historical research, scraping every digital trace Dahlia had ever left. Weibo, Xiaohongshu, Douyin, Zhihu, Douban, comments she'd left on others' posts, things she'd liked, events she'd attended, brands she'd worked with, every photo, every caption. And she discovered something staggering, that 6 months of preparation Dahlia claimed in her essay didn't hold up against the timeline. 6 months ago, Dahlia had been deep into a completely different series, she teased it repeatedly on her social media, sharing the topic direction and broad framework. Meanwhile, Iris had previewed the allegedly stolen topic in her own fan group a full year earlier, with time-stamped chat logs to prove it. That wasn't even the most damning part. The real bombshell was a 2-year-old Weibo post from Dahlia's early days, deleted, but preserved in a screenshot. It complained about her own low viewership, followed by a bitter line, I could do Inkstone history style too. It's just pretending to be academic, nothing special. Once I have more followers, I'll do it too. Someone in the comments had urged her to delete it, Dahlia replied, why bother? She'll never see it. She'd deleted it eventually. But nothing on the internet ever truly disappears. When Iris saved that screenshot, her fingers trembled slightly, not from anger, but from the revelation that Dahlia's animosity and imitation had started 2 years ago. All that time, Dahlia had been copying her style and topics while privately belittling her, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. This wasn't a spontaneous false accusation. This was a calculated, long-planned hunt. And Iris's followers, traffic, and commercial value were the prey. Once she understood that, Iris felt eerily calm. Everything clicked into place. She didn't need to wonder why anymore, only how. Her strategy was deceptively simple. First, no tearful, pleading, clarification video, hoping the public would spontaneously reverse course. That approach was almost useless in today's algorithmic environment, where emotion and polarization had already entrenched both sides. Any clarification from one side was read as excuse-making by the other. Instead, she'd peel back Dahlia's lies layer by layer, not by pointing fingers herself, but by letting Dahlia's own fans, the mob, the entire internet, discover the truth on their own. Second, legal action. Not the hollow lawyer's letter threat that influencers used for show. A real lawsuit, defamation, reputational harm, demanding public apology and financial damages. The litigation process itself would serve as a public evidentiary hearing, and courtroom evidence carried far more weight than any internet brawl. Third, the boldest move, she'd make Dahlia confess, on her own live stream, in front of hundreds of thousands of viewers. Beckett thought the plan was borderline insane, but he had to admit Iris had prepared for every step. Her timeline was accurate to the hour. Her evidence archive covered text, images, video, audio, even screen recordings of Dahlia's live streams. She operated like a seasoned investigative journalist, calm, meticulous, watertight. "Have you slept at all these past few days?" Beckett asked. "Yes," Iris said. "Just not very well." Beckett sighed and tucked the documents into his briefcase. "All right. I'll send the letter tomorrow. But Iris, prepare yourself, once this enters the legal system, it's going to drag on. Dahlia will counterattack, and her fans won't back down. You'll face even more pressure online." "I know." Iris's voice was even, like she was stating a fact. "But I don't have any other options." Beckett studied her face, and a memory surfaced, their college debate finals. Their team had drawn an almost impossible position, everyone assumed they'd lose. Iris, as head of research, had barely slept for 3 days, mapping out every argument the opposition might use and preparing at least 3 counterarguments for each. They won, and the judges praised their rebuttal structure as impenetrable as a wall. The woman in front of him now reminded him of that wall. "One more question," Beckett said, standing to put on his coat. "Why didn't you post a clarification right at the start? If you'd shown this evidence then, the backlash might not have snowballed this far." Iris also stood, pulling her cap back on. "Because I didn't have that WeChat moment screenshot or that 2-year-old Weibo post yet. What I had then were only things about myself, my timeline, my scripts, my sources. Those could prove I didn't plagiarize, but they couldn't prove she was lying. In the court of public opinion, proving your own innocence is the hardest thing in the world, because every word you say will be interpreted in the worst possible light. But if I can prove who she is, someone with motive, with a track record, someone who's been fabricating from start to finish, then I don't need to prove my own innocence anymore." Beckett was silent for a moment, then said, "If you'd had this kind of brain in college, you'd have been debate captain." Iris offered a faint smile, as insubstantial as frost on a winter windowpane. They walked out of the tea house. The rain had stopped, but the sky remained gray. Beckett had driven, he offered her a ride, but Iris declined, saying she wanted to walk. He didn't press, only turned back before getting in his car. "I'll send the letter tomorrow morning. I'll forward you the electronic copy. When you receive it, repost it on your account with just 4 words. Which 4? Legal counsel retained." Iris nodded. She agreed with the approach, no long explanations, no crying victim, just a calm, restrained declaration that she was pursuing legal channels. That posture alone carried weight. After Beckett left, Iris walked slowly along the street. Late autumn in Seaview City was bone-chillingly damp. Half the plane trees had shed their leaves, which crunched under her feet. After about 20 minutes, she stopped at a convenience store, bought a hot coffee to warm her hands. A small TV behind the register was airing news, volume low, but she caught the words cyberbullying. She glanced up. An expert was speaking about the surge in online defamation cases, but noting that few actually reached litigation because victims often gave up due to the difficulty of evidence collection, long court proceedings, and emotional toll. A subtitle read, "Silent Victims, Who Protects Them?" Iris looked away, pushed open the convenience store door, and stepped back into the night. This time, she wouldn't stay silent. That evening, Iris returned to her apartment, turned on her computer, and logged into her account. Her dashboard was brutal. The latest video's comments were a war zone, every top comment a personal attack with tens of thousands of likes. She didn't click into it. Instead, she went straight to the posting interface. She spent 2 hours editing a new video. It wasn't a clarification. It wasn't an accusation. It didn't even mention Dahlia's name. It was simply a retrospective of her 3-year creative process, from the first episode's research notes, to every script revision, to reference lists, to source gathering, displayed slide by slide. The final shot was a photo of her desk, books and notebooks piled high, a desk lamp glowing, a dark window behind it. The caption was one sentence: "This was every night of my life for 3 years." She didn't ask anyone to believe her. She didn't rebut any accusations. She just showed her actual working process, raw and unfiltered. It wasn't a legal statement or a formal rebuttal, but it sent a clear message. Would someone who listed a dozen academic references at the end of every video, who revised scripts a dozen times, really need to plagiarize someone else's research notes? She posted it, shut down the computer, and forced herself to sleep. The next morning, the video had crossed 1 million views. The comments were no longer a unanimous attack. Different voices began to emerge. "Say what you will, but you can't fake this kind of workload. I've followed Inkstone for 3 years. I actually check her references, they're all real academic papers and primary sources. You can't just make that up. Setting the plagiarism thing aside, I respect the work ethic." The haters were still loud, but the first cracks had appeared. Iris scrolled through the comments from bed, and a message from Beckett popped up: "Letter sent. Check your email for the PDF." She opened her inbox, downloaded the PDF, and read it through. Beckett's prose was as sharp as ever, restrained but forceful, itemizing each false statement in Dahlia's post and demanding removal and apology within 3 working days, or legal action would follow. Iris posted a screenshot of the letter on her account, with the caption, "Legal counsel retained." The internet erupted again. Dahlia's supporters claimed Iris was panicking by lawyering up. Her defenders said that going legal was a sign of confidence. The two sides argued endlessly in the comments. But Iris didn't linger. She had more important work to do. She had a meeting lined up with Felix Fong, technical director of a data recovery firm in Seaview City, and another college classmate. Felix had studied computer science, worked as a security engineer at a big tech firm, then struck out on his own, specializing in data recovery and digital forensics. Iris needed him to prove that Dahlia's WeChat screenshots were forged. Felix's office was in a tech park in Seaview City's high-tech district, surrounded by startups and tech companies. The downstairs cafe was full of hoodie-clad coders. When Iris arrived, Felix was on a call with a client. He waved her toward the sofa. His office was an organized chaos, 3 monitors lined up, an open computer case, cables and hard drives everywhere. The walls were covered in tech certification plaques and hackathon medals. The only clear space held a large neon "Hello World" sign. "So," Felix said, hanging up and swiveling to face her, pushing up his perpetually sliding black-framed glasses, "fabricated WeChat logs, right?" Iris pulled up the screenshots Dahlia had posted. "These are the chats she claims are between me and her. None of these conversations ever happened. I have my own WeChat history to prove it." Felix leaned in, squinting. "God, these are garbage quality. Blurry as hell, can barely see any detail." You have cleaner versions? No. She posted them like this on purpose, probably. Oh, absolutely. Felix snorted. Blurring hides tampering. Look at these, the spacing between messages is off, and the bubble colors are inconsistent. WeChat has a fixed color scheme, your messages are green, the other person's are white, with subtle variations under certain conditions. In these screenshots, several bubbles have the wrong hue shift. Iris looked at him with surprise. You can tell just from this blurry image. Bare minimum, Felix waved dismissively. But I need harder evidence. You have anything to work with? Iris came prepared. She pulled a folder from her bag, a full export of her WeChat history, including the 19 real messages between her and Dahlia. This is everything we actually said to each other. From when we added each other last October to now. You can compare it against her screenshots. Felix flipped through it, his eyes lighting up. 19 messages. Her screenshots show over a dozen just about borrowing materials, plus all the rest, at least 30 or 40. That means at least 20 messages in her screenshots that never existed. Exactly. Felix slapped his thigh in excitement. This is our opening. If I can prove her screenshots are doctored, technically, and we cross-reference with your actual chat history, this stops being, she says you copied, and becomes, she fabricated evidence to frame you. That's a completely different ballgame. Iris nodded, this was exactly why she'd come to him. In legal terms, inaccurate accusation and fabricated evidence were worlds apart. The first could be a misunderstanding, information asymmetry. The second was malicious intent, deliberate, indefensible. If she could prove Dahlia hadn't just been wrong, but had intentionally manufactured logs to destroy her, the outcome was already decided. How long? She asked. Felix imported the screenshots, zoomed into maximum magnification, and studied them. Depends on how sophisticated the forger was. If it's basic Photoshop, maybe a day or two to find a definitive flaw. If they use something more advanced, simulating the WeChat interface, maybe longer. But there's no exception, fakes always leave traces. Then I'll leave all the materials with you. Keep me posted. No problem. Felix walked her to the door, then paused. Hey, Iris, you've been getting destroyed online. How are you so calm? Iris glanced back. Her answer left him speechless for several seconds. Because panicking doesn't help. The next 3 days were the hardest phase of Iris's plan. After the lawyer's letter went out, Dahlia responded with silence. No apology, no deletion, not even a new post. Her silence was interpreted by her fans as, the truth speaks for itself, and, she won't dignify the plagiarist with a response, so the attacks on Iris didn't let up, they intensified. With Iris's address exposed, someone started stuffing threatening letters into her parcel locker, people loitered outside her building to photograph her phone number was used to register for spam sites, flooding her with hundreds of verification texts daily. She had to disable all phone notifications and go out in full disguise, even trips to the convenience store downstairs required a hat and mask. On the third afternoon, Felix called. I found it, he said, barely containing his excitement. And not just a flaw, a killer. Tell me. Get over here. I need to show you. This is too good for a phone call. Iris hung up and cabbed straight to the tech park. Felix was already waiting, all 3 monitors were lit, covered in dense data and graphs. He practically bounced in his chair, pulling Iris into a seat and launching into his explanation like a kid showing off a new toy. First, the headline, Dahlia's screenshots were not real WeChat captures. They were generated with a third-party tool that simulates the WeChat interface. You type in dialogue and it spits out a screenshot that looks authentic. Several of these tools exist, some even browser-based. How do you know she used one of those instead of manually photoshopping it? Iris asked. Felix grinned triumphantly, zooming into pixel level. Look at the edges of the chat bubbles. In a real WeChat screenshot, the edges have smooth gradients, because WeChat's renderer handles them. But these third-party tools produce a distinct jagged pixel artifact at the edges, different rendering engine. I ran an algorithm analysis. Her screenshots match the rendering signature of a tool called WeChat Simulator perfectly. He tapped his keyboard, bringing up a side-by-side comparison, Dahlia screenshot magnified on one side, a sample from WeChat Simulator on the other. The pixel patterns were nearly identical. And that's not all. Felix was on a roll now. Look at the status bar at the top, the carrier name, time, battery icon. In the real WeChat interface, those elements have fixed proportions and spacing. But in her screenshot, the status bar is about 3 pixels wider than standard. That means the screen resolution of the device used to generate the image doesn't match the phone model she claims to have used. Iris stared at the magnified pixel grid on screen, her pulse gradually quickening. Details that would be invisible to an ordinary viewer were, under Felix's forensic eye, gaping holes in Dahlia's story. Here's the killer, Felix said, pulling up the third monitor. You said you and she only have 19 real messages, right? I cross-referenced your actual timeline with what she claims happened in the same conversations. Look at this. One of her screenshots shows a timestamp of October 12th, 9:37 p.m., for a message where she's supposedly discussing a topic with you. But your real chat records show that at exactly 9:37 p.m. on October 12th, you were posting in your fan group. We have the group chat logs. You can't be typing in 2 different chat interfaces at the exact same minute. He lined up the 2 timestamps side by side on the screen, like a magician revealing his final trick. So Dahlia didn't just fake the chat logs, she made the most basic mistake possible, she didn't check the timeline. Iris was silent for a few seconds, then drew a long, slow breath. Felix, can you turn this analysis into a formal forensic report? Court admissible. Absolutely. I'm certified for digital forensics, this meets all civil evidence standards. Give me 2 days, I'll give you something beautiful. Good. Iris stood up. 2 days from now, I'm going live. Felix blinked. Live? You sure? With the current climate, won't you just get swarmed? That's exactly the point, Iris said. The more people, the better. On Saturday, November 26th, at 8 p.m., Iris went live. This was her first public appearance since the scandal broke. She hadn't posted a single thing on any platform for 10 full days, only 3 updates sat on her account, her last pre-scandal video, Beckett's lawyer letter screenshot, and that Every Night of My Life video from 3 days ago. The moment she went live, viewership shot past 50,000 within seconds and kept climbing. The chat bar flooded with a torrent of abuse, support, and spectator spam. Here we go, grabbing popcorn. Iris sat in front of her camera, a bookshelf stacked with reference works behind her. She wore no makeup, just a simple white blouse, her hair loosely tied back. Her expression was calm, no nerves, no agitation, as if this were just another ordinary video. Hi everyone, this is Inkstone, she began, her voice measured. Today I want to talk about what's happened recently. I know many of you have questions and things you want to say. That's fine, we've got time. The chat exploded. Messages flew by so fast they were unreadable. Iris ignored them and opened a prepared presentation. First, I'll respond to the accusations Ms. Dahlia Cheng made in her November 17th post. Her claims center on 3 points. 1, that she and I were friends and I borrowed private materials from her under that pretense. 2, that I used her research and exclusive insights in my videos. And 3, that my topics overlapped with content she was preparing. She paused, looking straight into the lens. Regarding point 1, the WeChat screenshots Ms. Cheng posted, I can tell you definitively, they are fabricated. She displayed the first page of Felix's forensic report, with the pixel analysis highlighted in red. The chat's tone shifted subtly, the volume of abuse dipped, replaced by a flood of question marks and, "What does that mean?" I commissioned a certified digital forensics firm to analyze Ms. Cheng's screenshots. Their conclusion, she flipped to the report's findings page, is that these images were not captured from the WeChat client, but generated using a third-party online tool called WeChat Simulator. Here's the technical breakdown. She walked through Felix's comparisons slide by slide: pixel jaggedness, status bar proportion anomalies, rendering engine signatures, timeline contradictions. Each slide was clearly annotated, each point explained in lay terms. She spoke slowly, at the same measured pace she used for her educational videos, making sure everyone could follow. Viewership crossed 300,000. The chat had transformed entirely. "Whoa, technical knockout, this drama keeps getting better. Dahlia, come explain yourself," these messages now dominated. The accounts that had attacked Iris most viciously went silent, like seashells stranded by an outgoing tide. Iris pressed on. "Regarding point 2, that I used her research and exclusive insights." She advanced to the next slide, a timeline comparison. "This is a screenshot of my own topic preview, posted in my fan group on November 3rd of last year, with over 400 members present." She displayed the group chat screenshot, the timestamp clearly visible. Ms. Cheng claims she spent 6 months preparing this topic. Based on her post date, she would have started in May of this year at the earliest. So my preview was posted 6 full months before she even began her 6-month preparation. She paused, her voice still steady. "I'd like to ask Ms. Cheng, how did I plagiarize something you didn't start until 6 months later, a full year before?" Viewership topped 500,000. The chat had lost all control. Reversal, "She's a beast, Dahlia, come take your beating." Iris turned to the final slide. Regarding point 3, topic overlap. Ms. Cheng and I both create content about ancient Chinese history. Overlap in the same field is entirely normal. If similar topics equal plagiarism, then every single creator covering the 3 kingdoms is plagiarizing each other. She allowed herself a small, rueful smile. Knowledge in the public domain is not a monopoly. That's a consensus all content creators share. She closed the presentation and faced the camera again. That completes my response to Ms. Cheng's accusations. All original evidence has been submitted to my legal counsel and the competent court. From here, the legal process will take over. Her tone turned more serious. "Before I end tonight's stream, there's one more thing I want to say, Ms. Dahlia Cheng, I know you're watching." The chat briefly quieted, everyone waiting. "Did you receive my lawyer's letter? The 3-day deadline has passed. You haven't responded, you haven't removed the false content, you haven't issued an apology. So tomorrow morning, my lawyer will formally file a complaint with the court." She leaned slightly forward, closer to the camera. "I want you to know, my evidence goes far beyond what I've shown tonight. That Weibo post from 2 years ago. That WeChat moment from 6 months ago. The things you've said in other people's comment sections. The things you've said in private groups. I have all of it. Everything you've done, everything you've said, it's all left traces on the internet." Her voice was soft, but each word struck like a nail. "You think deleting makes it disappear?" When Iris ended the stream, peak viewership had reached 830,000. She turned off the camera, leaned back in her chair, and let out a long, slow breath. Her hands were trembling slightly, not from nerves, but from the release of a tension she'd been holding for 10 days. She'd done it. She'd used facts and evidence to tear an opening in the public narrative. Her phone buzzed. "Beckett. Watched the stream. Excellent. The complaint is ready, I'll file tomorrow morning. Also, the 2-year-old Weibo and the WeChat moment you mentioned, send me those too." I'll assess if we can use them as evidence. Iris replied with a single, okay, then turned off her phone. Outside, Seaview City lay under a heavy night sky, high-rises speckled with lights. She looked at them and suddenly felt ravenous. She'd barely eaten for 10 days, and hunger crashed over her like a tide. She opened her fridge, half a carton of milk and an expired loaf of bread. She decided to go downstairs for a bowl of hot noodle soup. She pulled on her hat and mask, opened the door, and stepped into Seaview City's late autumn night. The noodle shop downstairs was still open. The owner, a cheerful northeastern man in his 50s, gave her a warm smile. "Miss, you're eating late tonight." "Yeah, working overtime." Iris sat down and ordered a bowl of beef noodles. The shop's TV was playing the late news. A segment flashed, her own stream clip appeared on screen. The anchor's voice, a major reversal in the widely watched Inkstone history plagiarism case. Blogger Inkstone presented multiple pieces of evidence in a live stream tonight, accusing the other party of fabricating chat logs. Iris looked down at her noodles and didn't watch. The hot broth slid down her throat, warmth spreading through her limbs. She ate slowly, deliberately, as if the bowl was a celebration. Celebrating that she was still standing. The next morning, Beckett Zhou formally filed a complaint with the Changning District People's Court in Seaview City, naming Dahlia Cheng as the defendant on grounds of defamation and reputational harm, seeking removal of infringing content, a public apology, and economic and moral damages totaling 500,000 yuan. News of the filing hit the media quickly, and the public conversation intensified. Dahlia's camp finally broke its silence. That afternoon, she posted a new Weibo: "I have never fabricated any evidence. I do not accept the so-called technical analysis from the other side. I have retained counsel. The truth will out, see you in court." The tone was defiant, but observant netizens noticed she'd set her original accusation essay to private. The move sparked fresh debate. If you're so innocent, why hide the original? Iris ignored Dahlia's post and continued her methodical plan. Over the next 2 weeks, she executed 3 strategic moves. First, she had Felix refine his forensic report into a full 40-page analysis, adding more technical granularity and comparison data. The report was not only technically unimpeachable but also written accessibly for lay readers. Iris even produced a dedicated video explaining the technology behind WeChat screenshot forgery in simple terms, and it went unexpectedly viral, surpassing 20 million views, with comments like, "This is fascinating," turning a scandal into a lecture. Second, she followed up with the offline event organizers. Under legal pressure, they finally agreed to release the sign-in records and on-site photos. The materials showed that Iris and Dahlia had only exchanged a brief, less than 5-minute conversation surrounded by others. No intimate exchange of materials, no lengthy discussion, as Dahlia had claimed. Third, the most critical move, she unearthed Dahlia's track record. While combing through Dahlia's entire social footprint, Iris noticed a pattern. Before her history phase, Dahlia had been a beauty blogger on another platform. She'd been in an almost identical dispute with a larger beauty creator, accusing her of copying makeup concepts, triggering a similar online pile-on. That creator had eventually chosen to delete her account and retreat, and the matter quietly died. Iris tracked down that creator through her old fan group. Her name was Lin Lin. She'd long since left blogging and worked at an advertising agency now. Iris called her, and they talked for nearly 2 hours. "She broke me back then," Lin said, her voice carrying the exhaustion of someone who'd survived a shipwreck. Same exact pattern, said we were friends, said I stole her ideas, posted these weird half-true chat screenshots. I was barely 20, had no idea how to fight back. 2 months of abuse, and I couldn't take it anymore. I deleted everything. Went to therapy later, moderate depression. Iris held the phone, silent for a long time. "If I gave you a chance to come forward with the truth, would you?" she asked. A 10-second pause. Then Lynn said, yes. On December 10th, Iris posted her second response video. Its title, She's Done This Before. In the video, Lynn told her story, how she'd met Dahlia, how the accusations started, how the harassment drove her offline. She showed screenshots and timestamps from 3 years ago, every detail aligned. By the end, she was crying, her voice breaking. For 3 years I thought it was my fault, Lynn said through tears. I thought if I'd just been better, stronger, no one could have hurt me like that. But I finally understand, it's not about me. Some people weaponize your trust and kindness in the cruelest possible way. The video's reach exceeded even Iris's expectations. Within 3 days, it crossed 50 million views and simultaneously topped trending charts across multiple platforms. Lynn's testimony fundamentally shifted the narrative. When one person accuses, the public may still harbor doubts. When a second victim emerges with an almost identical story, the calculus changes entirely. The court of public opinion had decisively turned in Iris's favor. Dahlia's account lost over 600,000 followers in 3 days. The top comment on her "Truth Will Out" post became a single question: will it, though? Her brand partners dropped her, the platform suspended her ad revenue and partnership eligibility. Her MCN agency released a statement terminating their contract, citing values incompatibility. But Iris wasn't done. On December 15th, she arranged to meet Dahlia face-to-face at Beckett Joe's law firm. Nearly a month after the scandal broke, the two sat across from each other. Dahlia was shorter than Iris had pictured, small and thin, bundled in a camel coat, meticulously made up but with exhaustion pooling at the corners of her eyes. Her lawyer, a dour middle-aged man in a dark suit, sat beside her in stony silence. Iris had Beckett beside her, a thick folder of evidence on the table. The conference room lights were harsh, exposing every expression. Ms. Cheng, Beckett began, in a flat, professional tone, my client has filed a defamation suit against you, set for trial next month. We asked you here today to explore whether a settlement is possible before the hearing. Dahlia's lawyer started to speak, but Dahlia cut him off. How much do you want? Her voice was thinner than Iris remembered, almost shrill, with a suppressed aggression. 50,000. Fine. I'll pay. Take the post down, and we're done. Iris said nothing, just watched her. Dahlia shifted under the gaze. What do you want from me? I've already lost everything, followers gone, all partnerships terminated. What more? Do you want me to get on my knees? Yes, Iris said, so quietly it was almost a whisper. I want you to apologize. I already. That wasn't an apology, Iris cut her off. Your statement said, if my words caused any misunderstanding, I regret that. That's not an apology, that's evasion. I need you to admit, on record, that you fabricated the chat logs, that you made up those accusations, that you've been lying from the start. Dahlia's face went pale. The room went quiet for about 5 seconds, quiet enough to hear the air conditioner hum. Never, Dahlia said through clenched teeth. I won't. Iris wasn't surprised. She leaned back, arms folded loosely on the table, relaxed, as if chatting with a friend. Dahlia, I've spent a month studying you, she said. I know exactly who you are. You've always been the top student, the pretty one, everyone's favorite. You feed on attention, on adoration. Blogging was the same, you loved being praised, loved hearing, Dahlia, you're so talented. But your talent couldn't match your ambition, so you found a shortcut, climbing over other people's broken reputations. Dahlia's lips pressed into a thin line, her fingers curled beneath the table. Lynn was your first, Iris continued. I'm your second. And I suspect if I hadn't fought back, there would have been a third and a fourth. Because this tactic works, fabricating chat logs is cheap, effective, and most victims just go quiet. Once they disappear, no one ever comes looking. right? I didn't, Dahlia's voice wavered. You don't have evidence. I have a 40-page forensic report, Iris said evenly. I have that Weibo post from 2 years ago. I have that WeChat moment from 6 months ago. I have every word you've said in private groups. Dahlia, you think deleting works. But have you ever heard of web caching? Data recovery? Dahlia's face went white. Iris pulled a single sheet from the folder and slid it across the table. It was a printed live stream announcement, with one headline, Dahlia Cheng, public apology. Tomorrow at 8 p.m., you go live, Iris said. In front of all your followers, you admit you fabricated the chat logs. You admit your accusations against me were invented from start to finish. You don't need to mention Lynn, just me. If you do, I'll consider a reduction in the damages. Dahlia stared at the paper, her chest heaving. Her lawyer leaned in, whispering in her ear. Her expression shifted, from defiance to calculation to something like despair. What if I refuse? Her voice was hoarse. Iris stood up, picking up her bag. Then I make every piece of evidence I have, public. She looked down at Dahlia, her gaze flat, no anger, no malice, no satisfaction. Lynn's testimony. Your private messages mocking your own fans. Your burner accounts boosting your own content. Every single piece. She turned toward the door, her hand on the handle, then looked back. You know what your biggest mistake was, Dahlia? It wasn't what you did. It was assuming no one would fight back. The door closed behind her with a dull thud. On December 16th, at 8 p.m., Dahlia Cheng went live. Within 3 minutes, viewership hit 900,000, a personal record. The chat was a blizzard of emojis and impatient demands. Front row seat, here for the apology, so what about those fake chats? Dahlia sat in front of the camera, her makeup heavier than usual but failing to hide the redness in her eyes. Her lips were cracked, she wet them repeatedly, as if gathering courage. I'm starting this stream, she said, her voice scraping like sand, to say one thing to one person. The chat paused for a split second, then surged again. Jiang Iris, I'm sorry. She dropped her head, tears splattered onto the desktop, darkening circles on the surface. The WeChat screenshots I posted, I generated them using an online tool. You never borrowed any materials from me. You never saw my research notes. The conversations I showed were entirely made up. We were never friends, we met once, spoke for less than 5 minutes. With each confession, the chat exploded, exclamation points, question marks, recording, screenshotting, this is going in internet history. I did it because your channel was better than mine. Same topics, but your viewership was always higher, your followers more loyal. I was jealous, for 2 years. After that series of yours blew up last year, I was just waiting for an opportunity. Her voice faded, but the mic caught it all, transmitted to nearly 1 million ears. I thought you'd do what that other blogger did, take a few months of abuse and delete everything. I didn't think you'd fight back. She covered her face, shoulders shaking. The chat went silent for a moment. Then the flood broke, anger, shock, sarcastic comments about her acting, and silence from many others. But everyone heard what she said. The WeChat logs were forged. You never asked me for anything. I was jealous. Iris watched from her rented apartment, the stream playing on her tablet. The light from the screen illuminated her face, neutral, neither smiling nor tearful. Just watching, like a movie whose ending she already knew. Her phone buzzed. Beckett, she confessed. I'll contact the court tomorrow about a pretrial settlement. What do you think about the damages? 50,000 should be manageable for her. Iris thought for a moment, then replied, I'll reduce it to 20,000, but one condition, she has to permanently pin that apology on her homepage for at least a year. You're more brutal than the 50,000, Beckett wrote back. A pinned apology for a year, that's a permanent tombstone for her comeback. Yes. Beckett paused, then replied with one word, done. Iris put down her phone and walked to the window. Seaview City's winter night was blade cold, but the sky was clear, a handful of stars scattered across the deep blue, cold and remote. She thought back to where she'd stood a month ago, staring at the same skyline, the same lights, with one thought burning in her chest, why? She had her answer now. No reason. Just herself. On December 20th, Iris posted her final video on the subject. Its title, Turning the Page. She sat at her usual desk, in comfortable loungewear, a steaming cup of tea in front of her. Sunlight streamed through the window, warm on her face. A lot has happened this past month, she said, her tone lighter. Thank you to everyone who supported me and believed in me when things were hardest. And thank you to everyone who doubted me, you made me stronger. I've said everything I need to say about this experience. From here, I'm returning to what I love, making videos, telling stories, sharing the fascinating history we all deserve to know. Finally, to anyone going through something similar, one message. She looked directly at the lens, calm and steady. Don't be afraid. The law is on your side. The evidence is on your side. The truth is on your side. As long as you're willing to stand up, no one can hide behind lies forever. The video ended on her smiling face, fading to a title card, Inkstone History, see you next week. In the comments, her own pinned message read, new series coming soon, this time, on ancient legal evidence systems. Stay tuned. The likes crossed 100,000 within 10 minutes. At his law office, Beckett watched the video and laughed quietly. He set down his phone and glanced at the settlement agreement on his desk. Dahlia had signed it, the $20,000 compensation was already in escrow, the permanent apology pin clause was locked in. The case never went to final judgment, but the outcome was better than he'd expected. He picked up his phone and messaged Iris, "You're serious about the new series topic?" She replied almost instantly, "Dead serious. I've actually been sitting on a ton of material. This whole ordeal made me fascinated with ancient evidence procedures. You should see the stuff about document examination in the Song dynasty's collected cases of injustice rectified." Beckett smiled, remembering the night before their college debate finals, Iris walking into the study room with an armload of books, eyes bright as stars, saying, "I found the perfect argument." Same look. He typed back, "Then I hope this series breaks all your records. Next time, though, call me before you've been tormented for a whole week." Noted. Thanks, Beckett. Beckett put down his phone and looked out the window. Seaview City's sky had finally cleared, winter sunlight glinted off the glass towers, throwing golden reflections across the street. He thought back to what Iris had said in that tea house, every step is legal. And it was. From evidence collection to forensic analysis to legal filing to public counterattack to pretrial settlement, she'd stayed inside the rules, inside the bounds of the law. No dirty tactics, no hired comment armies, no purchase trending topics, no mobilizing her own followers to harass the other side. She'd just peeled back the layers of truth, using facts as her scalpel, revealing the rot at the core. That was the highest form of justice. Dahlia's account, meanwhile, wore that pinned apology like a scarlet letter. Every visitor to her page saw it first, the confession of fabricated evidence, permanently displayed. Her followers had dropped below 100,000, most of them hate watchers waiting for her next humiliation. She occasionally tried to post new content, but the top comment was always the same. "Your apology letter's still pinned, and you're posting new stuff." The internet remembers. Iris made sure it remembered the truth. A week later, Inkstone History released the first episode of its new series, Ancient Chinese Handwriting Analysis, from sealed examinations to collected cases. The video made no mention of the recent scandal. Just Iris's gentle voice, as always. Hi everyone, this is Inkstone. Today we're diving into a fascinating topic. Within 24 hours, the video had surpassed 8 million views, her all-time record. Her follower count had climbed back to 2 million. And floating across the chat, pinned to the top by likes, a single line. Welcome back.